Welcome to the Ovation Show, where we're talking to Texas business owners and executives. We're discussing their business growth, corporate culture, sales, and strategy. We'll hear about their successes, their challenges, and hopefully we'll get some education, inspiration, and maybe a little motivation. So now let's learn, grow, and connect. My guest today is Jason McCann, co-founder and CEO of Vari, formerly Vari Desk, as everyone's probably familiar with. Jason, thanks for coming in.
Hey, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So it's great to be here. I look at you as a LinkedIn celebrity.
Well, we get out there and just, I think during the height of COVID, I started posting more and more things out there on how we were going through challenges. And that's connected with and resonated with a lot of people. So it's been fun. And I appreciate you doing this and really inspiring the next generation of entrepreneurs and leaders. So thanks for doing this.
Well, look at you are, a community leader. Last year, I think you were CEO of the Year with the magazine.
Yeah.
This year, you're in the D500. Congratulations on both of those.
Yeah, it's been an honor, and it was fun when DCEO called and they said they wanted to talk to me about something, and they said, we want to honor you with this. And it was very humbling. And I thought they were asking me to nominate somebody. And I said, why me? And they said, in the middle of all this, there's a lot of people out there that are looking for solutions, for ideas, for inspiration. And so it's been an honor to be recognized by DCEO. It's been fun.
Well, with so many great leaders in Dallas-Fort Worth, it's incredible. But definitely I can see why when I, following you and the things that you're doing and accomplishing are fantastic. So tell us a little bit about you, like where you're from and your family.
Yeah, my wife and I grew up in Galveston. I was born in the Midwest, but we grew up in Galveston and we moved up here about 20 years ago. So I've got 3 kids now that are 22, 20, and 18. So it's been a lot of fun. But growing up in Galveston, in really the tourism industry, my mom owned a hair salon, so she was the first entrepreneur I knew. And so we would talk about business and things like that. And I had a chance to open up a beach chair and umbrella company in my teenage years and learn the honor of hard work. Studied at the University of Houston and the Hilton College there, hospitality, and thought I wanted to be in the nightclub restaurant industry in your 20s. That's like your dream. And so I partnered up with the gentleman that opened Yaga's, the original Yaga's kind of during the Stussy Massimo craze back in the 80s, but they still own a great restaurant down there in Galveston. We opened one in Houston. And this was in the height of the Rockets' heyday of Akeem Olajuwon. It was a great period of the early 90s to be an entrepreneur. I really recognized that was not my calling. So I had to go back and I sold out to my business partners and wanted to change there. Went and got my MBA at U of H and randomly ended up in the toy business during the POG craze. And so that was kind of back. It's kind of
remember those.
Yeah, there was kind of a crazy period of time. And that was kind of the beginning of really trying to find my lane and product and taking care of companies and customers.
And what was that, Jemmy?
So Dan and I actually met in 1999. So during the POG craze, I ended up working for a toy company in Houston, kind of went crazy out there. The POG craze went up and down very quickly. And so Dan actually met the company in Houston that I was working with. And Dan and I had a connection. And Dan had founded this amazing company called Jemmy. And I'd never heard of Jemmy. Still, most people haven't heard of Jemmy, but people know the products. And so Jemmy was known for those Santas that hip swinged and danced and these big bubble makers and Seymour buns and all these funny novelty items, but was really a Christmas and Halloween powerhouse. And so Dan and I partnered up in 1999. This was the gold rush era of .com business eras. And so we decided to sell Christmas and Halloween online and called it iCelebrate.com. And launched it just like every .com business out there. So we had millions of dollars in sales, advertisements everywhere, but we weren't profitable. And so there was something happened, right? The music stopped in 1999, 2000, and the funding dried up. And then I realized at that moment I'd built a great business with a great culture, but I hadn't built a business model that was profitable. And so it was a very dark period too. So to go bust at 30 years old with a 6-month-old at home, sitting there going, oh my goodness, what am I going to do? And I felt like a failure. And it was a very tough period. Dan owned Jemmy, and that was his core business. He had founded in 1985. And he had the year of big mouth Billy Bass fish, the singing fish on the wall.
That was his?
That's Jemmy's. Yeah, that was Dan's.
Oh, wow.
And so they had created that. They also had a few inflatables. So we're talking big inflatable pumpkin, a Santa, a snowman, a Grinch, a monster. And Dan had a vision. Could you take all those giant gorillas that were on auto dealerships and sell $50 snowmen? And so when you lose a lot of money with somebody, you learn a lot about them. And so Dan asked for some help on his business. And so I kind of said, hey, let me help you for a few years, and went in and really fell in love with Christmas and Halloween and the company that Jemmy had built. And so Dan and I worked together, and he had a great team and culture, and I was blessed to be a part of it. And so Dan and I have worked together since 1999. So at Jemmy, I became president in 2009, and we became the largest supplier of all those inflatables that you see on people's yards for Halloween and Christmas. Also, all the LED lighting. So if you're at a Lowe's, Home Depot, Walmart for Halloween or Christmas, all that is produced by Jemmy. It's designed right here in the Capel area. And then it's produced overseas and then sold to all these amazing retailers. You go into a Michael's craft store, and all those pumpkins that you see that are carvable are actually made by Jemmy. So that was a great period. And then in 2012, I'm president of Dan's company, and he's standing at a cardboard box because he's got back pain. And he's like, my doctor told me to stand up more when I feel, to feel better. He said, I need like a standing desk or something. And so we were we're friends. We were joking with each other. It's like, so we're Googling online, Rosemary, our assistant's looking online to find Dan a standing desk, and we couldn't. And he walked in one day and he said, I've got an idea for a product. And Dan's pretty good at product. And that was the birth of VariDesk.
That's fantastic. I was wondering, where that came from and where the standing desk came from. So how long did it take you guys to figure out and to build the prototype?
So it was when Dan started describing the VariDesk at that very moment, standing at his cardboard box with his laptop on it. I had just hired an industrial designer, David, to help Jemmy in the outdoor living space. Jemmy does all the cool firefly lights and all these things in spring, summer. For counter seasonal revenue. So David joined us. The three of us sat there, and Dan started to describe, could it slide out of a box? Could I pull it up? What became the VariDesk? And David drew it. So we built the prototypes, and then we're flying over to Asia to work on our Christmas and Halloween product. And the joke was Dan and I never really sat together on planes, and we never really traveled at the exact same time, not for like security reasons, but we just didn't. But we happened to be sitting next to each other. We're sharing a Wall Street Journal. We're passing it back and forth. You got a 24-hour travel day from door to door. And this Wall Street Journal, Dr. Levine from the Mayo Clinic says, sitting is the new smoking. And we're like, a sign from God. Wow. There's something here. And so we're working on the Christmas and Halloween. We're like, do you have the standing desk? Do you have the prototypes done? And we saw them there. We had already built some in the U.S. And so that became, we had our first one. So we brought them back and we liked them. So they're functioning. Dan and I are standing up. Dan's starting to feel better. We're like, we got to show it to some people because the employees at Jemmy loved it. But that doesn't matter. You got to really take your product or idea and hit the battlefield of commerce. And so we're like, who in town here in Dallas has like a lot of people that are maybe in like a call center? And somebody knew somebody at Verizon. So Pedro Carrero was the president of Verizon's call center. Said, hey, we'll take a look. We know somebody. So we walked in cold. We had a meeting with the president of Verizon. And I'm laying there the night before, and I'm sitting there going, what are we going to say? Like suddenly I'm like nervous. Like, oh my God, I'm meeting the president of Verizon's call center division. What are we going to say? And as I'm laying there prepping for it, I say, we're going to create a happier, healthier, more productive workspace. That's what we're going with. And so we walked in, we got our Wall Street Journal, sitting is the new smoking. We got our prototypes of the VariDesk. We slide it out, we stand it up, and he goes, I have no idea what the hell you're talking about with sitting is the new smoking. But let me get my head of HR to come in and my ergonomist. And I'm like, I don't even know what an ergonomist is. And David's like, oh, the carpal tunnel, the person that helps you sit correctly. I'm like, oh, okay, great. They come in, and we were at that moment in growth mindset. Like we're sitting there going, listening and learning. And I think that's a very important thing. So when you take your product or idea out there, you want to listen for feedback. You always think your baby's beautiful, but the reality is the commerce and customers will tell you what it's really like. And you've got to be responsive and receptive to that information. So they gave us feedback, tweaks to the product. And they said the number one reason people miss work is for back pain. I was assuming it was something else. And so suddenly we were on. Sitting is the new smoking. The head of HR validated that. We went to the Container Store and showed them the product. And they already make product. We walked in and they had standing desks. So I'm sitting there going, oh my goodness. Because when they had bought Alpha, they were making their own furniture. They said the fact that you have adjustable height and it can work in a traditional office, we want to buy some. How much are they? And we were off and running. The catalyst happened when we were sitting there on an airplane and we were trapped on a tarmac. This is 2013. And we're sitting there and we were selling a few online, trying to figure out this business. And we're sitting there, and this is kind of pre-Wi-Fi on airplanes. So we're flipping through a Sky Mall magazine over and over and over again. You've read American Way. We're like, oh my God, is there anything else to do? And we're just trapped here. And we're like, wouldn't it be funny if we did an ad in Sky Mall right now with somebody standing up at a Veridesk? And so we said, let's do an ad in Sky Mall. So we called Sky Mall. We do an ad, and we become the #1 selling item in Sky Mall's history.
I remember it in Sky Mall. I remember seeing it in Sky Mall. I do. Is that, and then how far after that was you were on? It was on Regis and Ryan.
Ryan and Kelly. A few
that
years
was hilarious
ago.
when you posted that yesterday.
Yeah, it was so funny. Our team sort of dug up from the archives. I think that was 4 or 5 years ago, and they were reenacting the commercial that got us started. But it was fun to, by listening to your customers, it got us into anti-fatigue mats. It got us into monitor arms, all these other things. And I didn't know anything about office furniture, but I'm a CEO, I'm an entrepreneur. I know about culture and people. And ultimately, that's what we were doing, was creating the energy of the space through better and better products. And so it allowed us to listen to those customers. But you're right. Yeah, when they post those ads, it resonates. That means the brand's doing something very special.
I think you hit on something too about the wellness side of stuff, because we're in the employee benefits business, but we deal with a lot of MSK or musculoskeletal issues and the claims dealing with it, and it is a lot of back issues. And again, this is a solution. Michael Gordon talks about well care versus sick care. So this is a solution to getting away, instead of treating back issues, let's prevent them. And you're part of that solution. So did you know you were in the health space?
Well, we didn't at first. But I think you're right. We always talk about healthy organizations, and that's a blend of the authentic conversations that you can have, the mental well-being, the physical well-being, touching on all that, the inspirational components, the impact pieces. So you're touching on a lot of those things for people, because that's what life is about. It's these human connections. Health and wellness is all a part of it. And so I didn't realize we were in that business. But by creating happier, healthier, more productive workspaces, that sort of initial thing that we were trying to do, we recognized it was much bigger. What I didn't realize is we were talking about the transformation of cultures through workspace design. When we walked into when we moved out of it, we spun off the company from Gem and we became a real standalone business. We said, we don't want to put up sheetrock. We want walls that move. We want a space that ebbs and flows. We created collision points, a single coffee bar, so everybody in the company would bump into somebody they may or may not have an interaction with all the time. That creates a healthy organization. And we did centralized trash and recycling instead of everybody having a little basket under their desk. So people were up, moving. Movement is such a key thing of it. These runners learned early on, if I run in the morning, you and I are both runners, joggers.
You
trotters.
I'm a jogger now.
But they learned early on, if I run in the morning and I sit all day, I negate all that work. Throughout the day, I need this pulse. So the electric standing desk, all those things, height adjust, you can have standing meetings, sitting meetings, you want all those spaces. All becomes a part of a healthy culture and healthier people, which is really the impact we want to make on the world.
Like too, you talk about the workflow and getting people moving. But it's interesting, you said before, office furniture, but you're not in the office furniture business. That's just what you sell.
Yeah.
It's what's building this, and I think you guys call it workspace innovation.
Yeah.
And I think that's fantastic. I mean, you created this company around creating those healthy, happier workspaces. And that resonates, and it's in everything you do and every advertisement. I never see you say we sell office furniture.
Right. But we sell a lot of it, which is nice. Ultimately, we're a business, right? But what we learned as clients started to walk in, so they would tour our original space in Capel, and they'd take a tour. Hey, I want to come see it. They would walk in and they're looking around, and we have music playing in the lobby, music in the parking lot when you're walking up, music in the restrooms, the coffee bar, all the energy is what they're feeling. And that's the culture, and people create that energy. And the products are around it, and they create the bones of the foundation of the space. And then the products we think about should move and ebb and flow and be just like a business. Because we always say businesses never do this. That's not the reality. We would love for businesses in the world. It's this. It's up and down and grind and fight, just like life. And so we want to create spaces like that, but that's what we're in. So now we offer design services. So clients come in and a leadership team will say, hey, we're trying to figure this out. And we say, well, what's it going to look like in a few years? And we don't know. We're trying to future-proof it. And so we think about, okay, well, let's set the space like this and design it. And then in the future, it could look like this. It literally can change. And it's a new way of thinking about it. And we're trying to learn. So we've got tens of thousands of corporate clients. I think our products are in 98% of the Fortune 500, which is a blessing. And so that's been our journey of learning with these great companies that are trying to transform and innovate their cultures, recruit and retain talent. A lot of that's changed here been challenging in the last few years. But all those things are the services. And then we come in and we install it, which has been nice. Then we learn, and you call us like, hey, I need to change some stuff. We change it over time. And as your business grows and changes, we do it. And then obviously with COVID, we got a lot of people working at home. And so we've, kind of really now we're offering those solutions as well.
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously what you're doing works. I think even on LinkedIn, or it says, you're in 120 countries now. And I'm assuming the number's bigger now, 4 million. You're helping 4 million employees and people work healthier. Yeah,
you start on that journey of one. And suddenly the one becomes 2 or 3, right? Those early adopters. And it was almost like the Trojan horse effect happened. So the one Veridesk shows up in an office and somebody starts standing, and then 2 or 3 people, and this is 10 years ago, are like, oh, what are you doing? That's so odd. Well, now it's table stakes. You go into any traditional office, there's height adjustable desks, there's spaces to collaborate, to move. And that's been the catalyst for it, was really that initial product. So that became a great thing for us. The military started buying it. They had all these soldiers coming back from serving overseas and were having back pain and skeletal issues, and recognized that our product provided a solution for them. Then they started shipping it overseas to the satellite offices that we have, government offices all over the country. That got us into more and more countries. We had people from Australia, from New Zealand, from South Africa, and say, hey, we've been traveling. We see this. Can we do business with you? And suddenly we had to figure out how. And so that allowed us to expand our footprint. So our core Veridesk and some of our seating and perch solutions, the active seats, are all over the world. Our office things, as we think about really where we're at, is really primarily in the US, North America, Canada, because that's where we're kind of learning now. And so we've been battle tested here, especially over the last 3 years, as people went through the challenge of, what are we going to do? So we went through a process in right at 2020. So we said, hey, we're going to rebrand our company. So we're Veridesk. Everybody knows us all over the world. These 4 million fans and these amazing things. Because when people started doing surveys, we said, what kind of office furniture do you use? And they're like, I have no idea. But they know Veridesk. And so we're like, okay. And at that moment, I realized, do I have an opportunity to build a brand that can live beyond my lifetime, right? I'm 53 today. Not today, but these days. And so we worked with a company called Landor, and they helped take Federal Express to FedEx. And when they did a bunch of research out there, they said, all your Veridesk fans have recognized you have all these other solutions now. You're much bigger than that product. You should be Vari. That makes total sense. And for clients that hadn't done business with us, that we wanted to do business with, they said, oh my God, Vari means flexibility, change. Like, it's a much bigger word. And we said, okay, we're onto something. We have a shot here. Like, could I build a great Starbucks, a Walmart, a Nike? Like, do I have a shot at it? Let's go for it. So we went for it. And so we rebranded. We spent 18 months going through this, millions of dollars, just because you got to tweak a lot of stuff. I've got 350 employees. I got, stuff happening. And so we went through this process. We also opened up showrooms across the country, kind of in the smile here. I'm doing my hand gesture of the smile of the US. So we're in Raleigh and North Carolina and Florida and Austin and San Antonio. And we started opening up showrooms also in the DC area in Baltimore, and now in San Diego and Phoenix, Denver. And so we opened up these showrooms, hired salespeople, turned on our ads back on, that Kelly and them were talking about. Kelly and Ryan were razzing us about on TV. And so we turned it back on and went for it in a big way. And so we were out of the gate hot. We can deliver an office. We're in stock. We do the space planning. And then COVID hit, and like the world stopped. And we all remember that March time period when everybody's like, okay, what's going to happen here? And we started to navigate it. And as my teams went home, what I realized, I reached out to our teams in Asia that were about 12 weeks ahead of us on the COVID curve. What are y'all doing? Distance space design, masks, everybody's got hand sanitizer, the stuff that we've all been through. But we literally transformed our space because our walls move, our power drops from the ceiling. Like, we redid our headquarters and we started sharing it with the world and said, hey, this is how you can safely redo your space. And then suddenly we transformed over 1,000 offices across the country as all CEOs were trying to figure out, what do we do? And then for people that said, hey, working from home, they were calling in with back issues. Hey, I'm sitting on a futon, a sofa, crunched in a laptop. I'm sure y'all are getting crazy claim. That whole industry got issues. And they said, hey, what are we doing? You need the same solution and ergonomic solutions at your home. You've got to have a full setup. If you're going to dual monitors, just like your data security, all those things, if we're going to have remote workers, they need to have the same tools in the office. And so literally we ship tens of thousands of desks to corporate clients, all their employees all over the country, because you and I can build anything we make in 5 minutes. So, which is crazy. But that's how we did it. And so that allowed us to survive, battle test our culture and our values, and ultimately thrive and continue to emerge out of this.
That's an awesome story. And that, one of the things you talk about, Jemmy, you focused on people and culture, but you didn't focus on growth. And obviously you got the growth formula down, apparently. I mean, so one thing I've noticed too, though, you still have that team culture and that people culture. And that's kind of what I want to focus on next, because that is a big piece of when on LinkedIn and when you're talking online, it's all about your people. It's about the teams you're building across the country and other countries. Talk a little bit about the cultures that you create and what you were looking for as you build Vari.
Yeah, I think, as an entrepreneur, when it's you and you're starting a business, you are the culture. And as you recruit those initial early adopters, early employees that are going to be with you, that's your culture. But it's built on your personal DNA, your drive. You're building a balanced team. You know everybody's name. You can tell whether or not he or she is going to work out with you and really complement what you're doing. What happened to me was we started growing like crazy. We were the fastest growing company in DFW. We're winning all these great things from SMU, all these great awards. And suddenly I've got 120 employees. Well, I don't quite know everybody's name. I'm not getting to interview every single person that we're hiring. We're kind of coming off the rails here. And I know that unmanaged growth, I said if I was 25 years old, I would have crashed this thing into the ground. I would have just gone off the rails. So I had to do something. So I said, does anybody know a real chief people officer out there? I'd like to meet one. I've read all these great books. One of the core things that had come up was define your values. And I was like, well, we know what they are. Like, write them down. Well, what happened was my marketing team's in there sort of writing them down, integrity and just random words. We're like, okay, this doesn't feel right. So I worked with a woman, Corrine, and she had helped us build out Vari University, our leadership training. We did book clubs, and we were doing this early on to really help my young leaders have one-on-one conversations and mentoring. She said, let me help you with the values piece. And I said, how? What are you going to do? She said, give me a list of names. So I gave her 17 people. Some I had known for a couple weeks. Some I'd known, for 10 plus years that had worked with me at Jemmy. And she interviewed them. And 6 core values came to the top. And she talked about things like create lifelong fans. Well, that's a term we use because we recognize that we don't have customers. We have fans. And they love the brand that we're building. Be authentic. That's a value I've been living since day one. And all these values, these words started to come to the top. And so I got this email from her and she said, I've got your values. I want to talk to you about it. Here's the words and the messaging that came up after interviewing 17 people and Dan and me in the company. And I'm like reading these. And they said, okay, and then I at the same time had been reaching out to my network to introduce me to a real chief people officer. And they said, oh, your guest is at the front, Jeff Lamb. And Jeff Lamb was the former chief people officer at Southwest Airlines. He had left Southwest Airlines and was about to be president of another company. He was on some boards. He was kind enough to come on a tour. So meet him at the front, just like you met me today. Got a cup of coffee and we're walking around the building. And I'm telling him about Vari and what we're building here. And we're transforming businesses. We're doing workspace design and transforming cultures. We're not a standing desk company. And we don't have doors on our offices. And he's just mesmerized. And I said, tell me, at Southwest Airlines, how did y'all do culture? And what he described was, he said, culture is built on your values. So you take your core values, you hire to them, you celebrate them, you reinforce them. And as you hire people that embrace those values, they are filtered through those values, and then they add to the DNA and fabric of the culture. And it lives and breathes and changes over time, all marching towards a common goal. And I said, I've got my values, the draft on my printer that just came over from Corrine. Can you take a look at these? And we sat down and we're reading these. And some of them, we tweaked a little bit of the wording over time, but as he read them and he and I were connecting and talking, it was like, you're on to it. This is what you're like, you're describing, and this place is what the future of work will be. These values are, that became the solidification of us. And as we're walking out, because, tours end and we're walking out, I said, are you available to like consult or help me or something? He said, oh, your coffee's great. I'll just pop in. So he came back a few more times. And then a few months later, Jeff said, do you need some help with like a president or CEO? I was like, hell yes. Do you know somebody? And he goes, well, what about me? I was like, really? And so Jeff and I spent a Saturday with Dan and we just talked. And I said, ask me everything, anything you want to know. And we just talked all day on a Saturday morning. And midday we handshook and he said, I'm coming. And Jeff joined as president and COO, and he's an incredible blessing in my life. And so we've now been together a little over 5.5 years, I think 6 years. He's amazing. But to bring in, again, as you think about building a business, so you hit these walls, and you got to power through them. You got to decide, very few entrepreneurs can take a company to that first million, right? To 10 million, to hundreds of millions of dollars in sales. It's hard. It's hard work. Can you build a foundational company that can you be a Sam Walton, a Howard Schultz? Like, can you do it? Phil Knight. I mean, it's hard. And each level, you've got to have different skill sets and you've got to work on different things as you build your business. And I'm constantly working on my own muscle, right? My own things. I'm naturally very introverted. It may not feel like it on LinkedIn. I put it out there now, but I didn't pre-COVID. I'm not on Facebook. I don't want my personal stuff out there. But I recognize it helps people, and I recognize when you talk about it, and you're authentic, which is a core value, and you start to say, "Hey, that's important." And so those are the things that I recognize help other people. I go back to a flashback I had, and I was talking about this last night with a friend of mine, and I was at the University of Houston, and one night there was a flyer, and it said Mattress Mac from Gallery Furniture down in Houston for our Houstonians. It said, he's coming to speak tonight. And I walked, I'm like, oh my God. And I walk into the auditorium and Mattress Mac's up there in a Gallery Furniture t-shirt, and I'm in college. I'm like, oh my God, and really will save you money back in the day. And he talked about focusing on the customer, focusing on taking care of people, keeping business simple. And I just was mesmerized. He just had a yellow notepad. And the way I felt when he spoke, I said, if I ever make it in life, I'm going to do what he just did for me, and I'm going to give back to the next generation of entrepreneurs and do my duty. And now you'd see what he's done with impacting the hurricane victims and opening up. Like, those are things that inspire me to do my best, that there's other people out there that are fighting even harder to create jobs, to create an impact in the community. And so those are a lot of things, but all those are thresholds that you've got to push through on people and culture and all those things.
Well, you brought up Mattress Mac, because that's the first thing I know about him is he is such a community giver. Mm-hmm. And that's what he was known for. That's why everyone loved him, and he took care of his community, aside from the $1 million bets on sports, but that gave him national fame, but locally we know him as just a big person in the community. And I love that you aspire, and you're already doing that, but that you aspire to be like that and do those things as well. But you're talking about your values, and I wrote those down because I love them, and I'll make sure, hopefully I got them all right. Embrace change, be a team player, believe it's possible, be authentic, create lifelong fans, and raise the bar. Mm-hmm. Is that correct?
Yeah, and you start, and the dots make sense. And when we first we had the draft, the only one that changed was I used to always say, roll with it. Got to roll with it. You just got to roll with it. That was one of the core values. And as we had an opportunity at 120 employees, I sat down in groups of 10 and we went over these values. And embrace change became the word that my team all said instead of roll with it. And so that was the only one we tweaked on the wording. But the core values, what she said was, you don't realize it, but you've been living them since day one. And I have. And so raising the bar constantly, the authenticity that we talked about, be a team player, right? And you talk about humility, being hungry, humble, and smart, the ideal team player for Lencioni. You start to be a team player. And you get that. And as you talk to people during the interviews, you can start to pick up, are they a team player? Are they hungry, humble, and smart? Do they embrace change? Oh my God, if they hate change, they're probably not going to fit in our DNA. And sure enough, when we go back to it, for anybody that hasn't worked out, it's typically down to those 6 core values. If they're not willing to raise the bar and do better and push to grow, then it's probably not going to work. And so all those little things connect the dots when you're hiring, recruiting, retaining, and also we share them. So we talk about, I want our customers that we're doing business with, these are our core values. If this doesn't align with you, then we probably shouldn't do business together. And that's okay. I mean, there's plenty of business for somebody else out there.
And you answered one of my questions. My next question was going to be, how do you hire? What do you look for? Because you can't just hire somebody and then try to force your values on them. They have to have it coming in. Ray Hunt years ago spoke at a North Dallas Chamber event, and he talked about the culture of Hunt Oil. And I didn't really think they had a culture. And he talked about how important that was to them. And they hired for that culture. If you didn't already live what they were talking about, they wouldn't hire you. Mm-hmm. And then he talked about also the importance of pushing that culture throughout the whole year, not just one time. He said, yeah, some companies will have a culture day, but he said you have to do it consistently. Hire those people, make sure they fit in. And if somebody doesn't fit in, eventually they have to part ways, because you don't want that bad apple in the entire group, because it is infectious.
Yeah, and you can't, at 100, and they have thousands of employees, but at hundreds of employees, you don't get to know everybody. But by having a common set of values, you know that you're all on the same page. If you're marching towards a common vision and goals, you recognize this is what we do, right? This is the job and the mission that we're on. And that starts to work. And when you celebrate them, so you'll see when I've got monthly all hands meetings, with our team members, emails that are going out weekly, or we're celebrating. So, if Katie or one of the team members has done something and really raised the bar, you'll see like a raise the bar threaded into an email or a shout out, and everybody knows what we're talking about, because you talk about them and you celebrate those core values and you coach to them. And you talk about them in onboarding when team members are coming during the interview process. They've probably been on LinkedIn and read them and said, "Is this true? Are they really authentic?" And if they're not comfortable being authentic with us, then I don't want to hire them. I'd rather know today, and you learn those things from other great organizations, because the culture, you feel it. It's hard to define it. And that's why I said it's a living, breathing thing built on these values, and it changes over time, but in a positive way as people add to the DNA of it. And so that's how I would think about it.
Speaking of hiring, let me ask something, because you and I, we're almost the same age. I'll be 53 next month.
All right, welcome.
I'll be in the club. But it looks like online, it looks like a lot of your staff are more on the millennial side. They're younger. What do you see from, I don't want to say benefit side, but what do they look for in company? What do they look for besides, we know health insurance and those kind of benefits, but what are they looking for from a company that they go to work for?
Well, I think what people are looking for is to learn, to grow, and to make an impact, and to financially take care of their family, right? I mean, they're thinking about those things. So if I can learn and grow, and I can do something, and I always tell people, especially, you really want to learn early in your career. Hopefully you're lifelong learning regardless, but they want to learn. And so do I have an opportunity to learn something here, right? Do I have an opportunity to be financially rewarded? Like, can I make am I going to, so those are kind of table stakes, I think. And then you start to talk about impact, like that tingly thing of like, wow, I'm going to make a difference in the role, whether I'm in accounts receivable or whether I'm in sales, whether I'm on the front lines of customer experience and I'm taking calls or doing chat. Like, am I making an impact out there? What is this company trying to ultimately do? And so I think for us, we sell, about 250 different products, but we're making an impact on cultures of other organizations that are growing and navigating the future of work and change in schools and state and local businesses that we serve. And so we see that impact out there. And then you have other things. We had early on, like MetroCrest here in town had a sign-up sheet. One of our team members had a sign-up sheet, and do you want to drive around and do Meals on Wheels? I'd never heard of MetroCrest at the time. And so there's a sign-up sheet, and people are signing up. So I'm like, so I email over there, and they're like, Tracy Eubanks runs MetroCrest. So I email, I'm like, I'd like to meet Tracy and see him. My wife had been over there with my son to do packing of food and backpacks for kids. And she said, it's great. And I was like, okay, I got to go over and see this place. So I tour, and I'm like, oh my God, this is great. And I see the food, and I got to volunteer with my team, and we're loading up cars with groceries. And I saw the impact that they're making. And then Minnie's Food Pantry, Dr. Cheryl Jackson, she comes in. She's great. She comes in, and they talk about it. And what we realize is we can now create a volunteer time off program. I also had some scratch and dent furniture and some furniture that might be returned or whatever that's brand new. It's like, wow, what if I donated furniture to some of these nonprofits? So we did a big donation to Minnie's Food Pantry. And so Cheryl's got all the learning, they're doing all the education classes. What's all of our furniture? And we went and showed up, and they're volunteers and ours. We built it together. And so you're getting some sweat equity, and you're getting in there and building it. We did the same thing for the Make-A-Wish headquarters here. They were trying to put $500,000 worth of furniture like out to bid and they're going to, buy it. And my team was like, wow, our furniture, one, is less expensive than most. So for $250,000 worth of furniture, they hit their $500,000 need, their budget. We donated the furniture. We went in with their volunteers and built it together and set it all up in the Make-A-Wish headquarters. And so suddenly they took that $500,000 and turned into 50 wishes for kids.
Wow.
So those are the stories, because they're authentic, that our team members are coming to work with us and recognize we're making an impact. So we've donated over $6 million worth of furniture to nonprofit organizations in the last 3 years. And that impact, because you think about it, is they're not spending probably $12 million or whatever from somebody else on furniture, and they take all those dollars. Now they have a cool space. They're recruiting volunteers or employees for these nonprofits. They go out. And so we're doing a huge one with MetroCrest when they're building their new campus. And we'll go in, it's a ribbon cutting ceremony. And it's a win, right? It's a win for our brand, obviously, but it's a win for the impact, because now, their people, their volunteers, their employees are in a cool space. We've made an impact. My team's a part of it, but that's all part of the culture and of what you're doing. So those are the things I think when people are looking for organizations they want to be a part of. Can I learn? Can I grow? Do I make an impact? Do I want to work with these people? Do I believe in their values? Do I live their values? And those are the things I'm thinking about. The other thing I talk to young leaders about and students that I talk to is there's two roles out there. You can have a transactional role, or you can sort of have a relationship business as you think about your career. And so there's always a transaction to something. Like you're doing something, you're selling something. Everybody's in business. We're all in sales. But the relationships that you build from your team members, with your clients, with companies you serve, that's what's about. If you sit at home all day and you're just transacting, I'm beating on the table here, but if you're just transacting all day, you're probably going to be replaced by a chat GPT or some new whatever they're coming out with from a technology standpoint. And there's no value to what that is. And so finding ways for people to build human connections, whether it's through universities and schools, the way that they've always tried to do it, for businesses, for us, for these cool Venture X's, all these businesses that are creating spaces for great entrepreneurs to get together, for people to work together, for other organizations to be together. I think that's a very important thing that we've got to continue to build, because as humans, this connection is part of being healthy. This is so much a part of society and things that we need to create ways to do that. And so I think that's part of what we're on right now, is to lead by example, empower through all this crazy isolation that's happening, and find ways to bring people back together.
I think it's great. I mean, the impact you're having on the community, we talked about that earlier, but you are having that impact, but also the trickle down effect that you're not even seeing, I'm sure, is out there. But now you're bringing your employees into maybe places they didn't know. They didn't know about Minnie's Food Pantry. They didn't know about some of these charitable organizations.
Or how to volunteer. Like, I didn't do a whole lot of volunteering. Yeah. I didn't. I mean, I did some as a Boy Scout and all these things, and you kind of do it, but you kind of lose it. So you were talking about, when you hire a younger generation worker, you show them what to do. Like, how do you go back and serve the community? And so I think those are ways you just lead by example, and then you share it, right? Obviously, we happen to put it out there on LinkedIn, but by sharing those stories, other leaders and CEOs go, oh, we can do that too. Why not share the ideas, right? And so we share our ideas of things that we're working on, and we get ideas from other people. And that's how you get connected in these great communities. So in our offices across the country, so like in Phoenix, we did the Boys and Girls Club in Phoenix. Well, I've heard of the Boys and Girls Club, but I hadn't heard of the one in Mesa, Arizona. And so they're like, oh my God, they've got this thing, this program. They're great. So my team over there said, hey, could we serve them? So right now we've probably got 1,000 original Vera desks that we've reached out to a whole bunch of nonprofits and said, hey, if you'll come get them, they're ready for you. So they're coming to get them in pallets right now to serve these organizations. They're like, hey, we've got our volunteers at home. We want to take care of them. So we're doing that donation thing right now. So you can go on LinkedIn and reach out to us. We'd love to help you.
I love it. We made a good comment that it kind of gets viral too. I mean, we talked Feed My Starving Children.
Yeah.
That's how you took your step.
Yeah.
We love that. My kids love it. It's a great place to go. But I made a post about it. We went a couple times just through the holidays, and it's going to be kind of a regular thing for us. But I posted about that, and next thing you know, I'm getting texts from friends of mine saying, hey, I went and just did it. It was so much fun. Yeah. So you don't realize it, but people are looking to do things. They want to be involved. They want to help. And so bringing your staff out there is helping the community. It's again, creating that culture, but you're still helping the community.
Yeah. And I think each one of us, you think about if you choose to be the light and do something positive and light that one candle and suddenly somebody else sees it. I mean, imagine the amount of light and positivity that we create in the world. Because I hadn't heard of Feed My Starving Children until one of our team members was volunteering over there. They said, oh, it's great. We show up, you put on the hairnet, you pack it on, you get, you're in your gloves. And you're learning how to measure 0.7 ounces of rice or beans or whatever the protein pack is. And then you pack up and you pray for that pallet of food and you ship it off. And a month later, you get an email that in Ghana, they've received your pallet of food and you just fed 12,000 people from, I'm like, oh my, that, you can't describe the positive impact there. And to know that you're making a difference there and locally, globally, it's priceless.
I love it. So let's shift gears for a minute. So before we run out of time, I want to talk a little bit about you've now transitioned, you've taken Vari into the real estate market, and you've got, Vari Southlake, Capel, and I think there's another.
Las Colinas, Irving, yep.
So talk a little bit about that transition. I mean, going from we're creating this workspace environments to now we are owning the workspace environments.
Yeah, so for us, we wanted to learn. So, I think for us, we're in a constant learning mode. So we'd lease some office space when we were just Vari. My business partner, Dan, was like, hey, if we buy a building and learn, we will be able to talk to building owners all across the country and the world of, hey, this is how we think about the workspace of the future. So we bought the original Zales headquarters in Las Colinas in Irving. Beautiful building built in the 80s. It sat empty for 6 years. So he and Bill Cawley went online and bought it on an auction. And suddenly we've got this amazing building and we transform it into VeriSpace. And we said, we want this to be, for us, an ideation lab, a showroom. And we leased it out fully furnished with our product in less than 9 months. And so suddenly you've taken something that was just sitting there mothballed for years and you brought it back to life. It's a state-of-the-art, beautiful campus, 1 acre park, 0.6 mile walking trail, 11,000 square foot gym, coffee bar, full restaurant and Compass, and the energy is incredible. Now we've already started transition at the University of St. Augustine, just built a state-of-the-art campus in there, 75,000 square feet, training occupational therapists, physical therapy, Rumble On, who I had not heard of but they're amazing. So if you buy and sell your motorcycle, they're publicly traded on NASDAQ, Marshall and Peter, they're great. So it's like you've got these great companies in there that are in our space. We bought the building in Southlake. It sat empty for 11 years. It's one of the original buildings in Solana of the IBM campus. It sat empty for 11 years. So we walk in and we transform it into VeriSpace. And again, all during COVID, we've leased over half this building. So likewise, again, a company I'd never heard of pre-COVID, when you take your phone and you turn it back in for your iPhone 10 to your 14 now, they're the reverse logistics for all that across the world. One of the largest companies, that's all they do. And they're amazing. So now that is their world headquarters inside of our building in Southlake. And so then we said, we want to build the building of the future. How would we learn? How would we build it? So we worked with Boca, Corrigan, Adolphson, and Peterson and built the building of the future, VeriSpace Capel. And we're a tenant. So of this 1 million square feet of office that we own in DFW, we're only 10% of it. I've got, less than 100,000 square feet as my team, but we lease it out to all these great companies. And then we host tours from all these great real estate executives, people that are thinking about buildings. How do you take an old building and bring it back to life? And obviously we're selling furniture. We also lease it out, but we've now leased 500,000 or 600,000 square feet of office space all during COVID, because we create a different energy, a different space. And so we'll announce a couple more here pretty soon. Can't announce them today, but we're announcing pretty soon because that allows us, we're doing something right. And so some of our leases might be 10 years, like a traditional lease. Some might be 3 or 4, but that's how we learn. And it's just a part of us learning.
So what's next for you guys? I mean, just more real estate, more buildings?
Well, I think for us right now, we're focused.
Things you can tell us.
We're focused on really helping other companies transform their cultures through workspace design. Like literally, how do we create spaces that elevate people. And so I think that is my thing right now. And so we've now got team members in about 18 cities across the country in showrooms everywhere from Southern Cal to, all throughout Texas. And we're literally hosting tours in person and virtual as clients are thinking about it. And so we're doing all the products for like Venture X's and all these great co-working companies that are all energized and coming back, and small, medium businesses that are trying to figure out the future of work. So for us, we're continuing to create more and more products. With Verispace, we've got 3 amazing buildings. We host tours all the time, and we'll work with other developers at some point where it makes sense. I think right now the world's kind of trying to figure out what is going on out there, right? Are we in a recession? Are we not? But what I'm seeing is that we're just trying to find ways for people to get back together, work, and make an impact. And so I think a lot of companies are navigating what is the future of work. Are we going to sit at home all day and stare at our screens? Or are we going to find ways? And I think for us, challenging ourselves, just like universities, is how do we get people back together? And so when you are together, you start to meet people that maybe speak another language than you, that know something different than you, that have a different background, make more money than you. Like, you get to learn a lot as you build these relationships when you go to an office. And so universities, you also do that. You get out of your neighborhood, and you get to meet people and really bringing the world together. And so I think if we can create spaces that do that and work with great growing companies that are trying to figure that out across the country, or people that are working from home, like, that will allow us to grow. And could our brand be one of the big ones out there someday? And that's what I hope to do, is build a great company. And we've got 350 employees, and we're still hiring, and we're trying to navigate it like everybody. I've got to wake up every morning and earn it. It's not free. And so we're fighting the good fight.
That's
Hopefully
awesome.
We'll win.
So let's hit one more thing, and then we'll get ready to close out. Talk about painting.
Because
that is such a, first, you're really good.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
I thought it was interesting too. We all have coaches for business, and you have a painting coach.
Yeah. I'm working on a painting for Make-A-Wish with John B, and she's a Make-A-Wish kid. So she's a survivor, and she was a Make-A-Wish kid at 4 years old, and I think she just turned 24 last week. And so Make-A-Wish reached out. They had heard I was doing some painting, and they're like, "Hey, we want to do a collab. Would you be interested?" I was like, "Oh my God, yeah, I'd love to do one." Learn from a real artist. So she's been my mentor and teacher, my art coach. So it's been fun to work on a collaboration with her, and we'll reveal it in May at the Make-A-Wish, and we'll auction it off and hopefully raise some money and do some wishes. So, and so that'll be a lot of fun, but it's been fun to get back out there. And during the early 90s, I did a little bit of tag art with, cans, trying to paint on canvases and trying to learn graffiti art. And I wasn't very good. And then about 10 years ago, I tried it again. And then during COVID, I got in the garage, and it was 100 degrees out there here in Texas, and threw down some canvas from Michael's, and I started putting paint on it, and it just felt really good. And so I just started laying down paint, and it started to feel good, and it came to life. And I love bringing these canvases to life. I joke that I can't really paint anything. So they're like, "Oh, it's like Jackson Pollock style." I'm like, splatter paint, and that's what my kids always called it. But it was very soothing for me to learn the textures and try to figure it out. And so, it's been fun. We've auctioned off one. TCU, we raised some money for that. We just raised some money for MetroCrest. So I've been auctioning them off and selling some paintings to raise some money. It's been fun. My wife joked that she kicked me out of the garage. So I'm upstairs now in a room in my house, and I get in there, and my kids got me some white Dickies overalls, even though I only wear black all the time. But so now they're covered in paint, and I get in there and I got gloves. Now I'm getting better. I still got paint on me today. I was painting early this morning, but I get up, and early in the morning sometimes, and just for my headspace and meditation, and paint for a little bit, or I'll paint at night, and definitely on the weekends, trying to crank out a couple a week right now. And I don't know what I'm gonna do with it. My wife's like, "You got to get them out."
I was going to ask you, how long does it take you? A couple of weeks, actually, way more than I thought. I figured, maybe I do one a month, 2 a month. But they're really good. I've been really impressed. And I've seen a progression, too.
Thank you.
But I like the heavy, you looks like you use a lot of thick, heavy paint. And I like
texture.
I like the texture in painting. I really like that. So those are fantastic.
Yeah.
So you're a painter, an inventor, an innovator, a disruptor, and an amazing leader. For other CEOs, other entrepreneurs out there, you got a couple of last words of advice or things you've learned?
I would say, hopefully I'm a good dad and a good husband, is probably the most important thing I think about, is, serving my family and leading in there. I think, for entrepreneurs, what I always talk about is if you can find and identify pain points that you see in the market out there, and you have these passions and they happen to collide right where those pain points are, there's a tremendous opportunity to build an amazing business. And so when you think about that, we all see pain points out there and why is this? And it's so frustrating. And if you're an entrepreneur and you want to solve that particular challenge and turn that into monetize that pain and turn that into a business, that can be a fantastic business. I happen to also think it's okay to be an entrepreneur. When I worked inside of Dan's company, Dan's an amazing entrepreneur, but to take a step back and serve another entrepreneur and help them grow his or her business and be a part of it. I love to have people around me that are entrepreneurial thinking. They treat the money like it's theirs, so we're not going crazy. We wake up at zero. We know we got to sell. We know we got to keep our costs down. We got to work hard. We got to serve our customers. Those are basic tenets of just being successful in life. Trying to find that balance, I don't think I did early on. I think that's why I crashed out in the restaurant nightclub industry, because even the .com, I just worked 7 days a week. And so I just thought that was all you did. And I never took a moment to recharge. And so that for me is always a challenge, just finding that balance and integrating it all in. But I think those are things that we all struggle to do. And so finding those points of balance is hard. But if you're truly doing what you like to do and you're excited about the challenges you're solving and the people that you're serving, it all works. It's not easy, but I've been reading some great stuff. My CFO has turned me on to Ryan Holiday and the Stoics and all these things. But you remind yourself that it's not supposed to be easy, that this is part of the work, right? The bee gets out and does his or her job every day, right? The flowers still do their job. Like everybody's got a job to do. My grandmother is 100 now, and she talks about her journey and the work that you do, when I never met my grandfather, but when he was killed when my mom was 14. So my grandmother raised 7 kids by herself. You just do it. You have faith. You go to church. You get up. You do your work, and you get back at it. And life will work out how it's supposed to. And so that's how I think about things for entrepreneurs. We've all got a job to do. Everybody's got to lean in and do something and find a way to make an impact. And we all do. And so whatever that job is, do it and do it to the best of your ability and make the impact, and everything will work out. That's how I think about it.
Awesome. Thanks so much for coming on. This is an honor to have you here.
Oh, my pleasure.
So very exciting. So everyone, thanks again. Real excited to have Jason McCann here. And thanks for tuning in. And here's a few words from our supporters and sponsors. Thank you to our sponsors and supporters. 33 Inc., helping your brand grow with custom screen printing, embroidery, and merchandising solutions. Smart Business Concepts, providing financial services to drive profitability, scalability, and flexibility of your company. And Texas CEO Magazine, informing and educating business leaders across Texas since 2010.
As business leaders, we all know that healthcare is expensive. In fact, it's one of the top 5 expenses in most companies. The decisions you make or don't make in your healthcare plan can have financial repercussions down the road. But not all is lost. There are ways to take charge and get your employees the best possible care, all while reducing overall costs for us as employers and employees too. Get your copy of Life and Death Decisions in the C-Suite, where Dan Labroad and his colleagues pull back the curtain and address how the private healthcare system and health insurance industry have plagued businesses for decades. What you'll discover will empower you to take back control over your health insurance costs that could mean massive savings for your company while giving your employees better quality health care. Get your free copy now at the link below or using the QR code provided.